Welcome to Crimson Guitars, welcome to my home studio, welcome to Luthiers Question Time Live. This is episode 77 of the live stream and podcast where I answer your questions predominantly about guitar building, but pretty much anything is fair game. At this stage, well, it's Sunday evening on Crimson Guitars Extras and it is 8 p.m. UK time. There is a thunderstorm advisory currently in effect, and I must say that last night the thunderstorm advisory was well meted out by the weather. They listened to instructions and knocked me off my EA Games server at least 3 times. Most annoyingly, at one point there was a lightning strike within, it felt like meters of the house, and you know, when the planet is telling you to go get some sleep, then you probably need to. In any case, we have got Lisa, Carol Wood, Robert R, Black Wraith, Marston of the Nuclear Village. The screen is full of green names, which means we've got a bunch of our YouTube members, members of the family, and fantastic supporters who we appreciate. Creeverai is one of the moderators for the evening. Spike's Frugal Fixer Guitars. In the house, Anthony Cunliffe, Jeff's Guitars, Lisa Carol Wood, Goth Rider Creations. There's a bunch of us. Old Man Bill used to be just Bill, but is Old Man Bill from now on. And yes, I think that I've at some point I'm hoping that at least one of my 3 progeny, the long-term projects 1, 2, and 3, will have children of their own. At that point, I'm going to insist, instead of being called Pops or Granddad or anything, I'm going to be called Grumpy. And yeah, I think I should probably, Grumpy Luthier. I should have that as my online name already. In any case, Jules is in with the super chat of the first super chat of the evening. Thank you very much, Jules. Super chats are the way to guarantee that I see your question as the stream heats up, as more people join in. The general question on the side goes fairly, the chat goes fairly rapidly, and on top of that, a large portion of the chat is filled with chatter in between yourselves, which is fantastic, and this is one of the reasons why I love this community and why I keep on coming back and doing this on my Sunday evenings. But yeah, super chats. Anyway, Jules has come in and says, "Hey Bun, I've now also bought the Famag drills." These little ones behind me. He says they are amazing, even for €100, and the piercing saw you sold just like that. Working is fun again. I seriously... Did you see me stop and pause there for a second? That was me counting the words. There were only 4 words, but I had to count them nonetheless. Working is fun again. It is 4. He triple-checked himself. I'm not that great at counting. I have made countless errors, countless mistakes, countless times where I've had to go back and rework something, not because I am fundamentally flawed as a craftsman, but because I was using either cheap and not good enough tools, or the wrong tool for the job. And you don't have to go and spend tens of thousands of pounds in order to get a workshop. I could probably build guitars professionally, probably slowly, but professionally, in a workshop full of tools that I've spent maybe, hell, probably under £2,000 on, probably even less, to be honest. And the upgrade, the first thing you should upgrade, in my opinion, is something I don't actually sell at any of my businesses at the moment. I think we might stock some Famag bits. Oh, it wasn't even those are Star M bits. The Famag ones are these ones here, which are even better. Drill bits. Even if you only have a very good 10mm drill bit, 11.5mm drill bit, and a sort of a couple, because you're going to lose them or break them, 2mm and 3mm. Even if those are the only really good ones you buy, and you don't buy a whole €100 set, it will be worth it for drilling out the tuner holes, for drilling out Most bridge studs or inserts, and then the 2mm and the 3mm are for finer things and are always required. But seriously, good drill bits are almost always worth the money. That is until you take your very expensive 10mm drill bit and say, I'm going to drill a quick hole in the side of this workbench, made out of recycled mahogany, so that I could install, it was an Anglepoise lamp that didn't have the clampy thing, so it just had the pokey bit, and then you go through a screw. It was a long time ago. The pain is still very, very real. In any case, D. Bailey is coming with another super chat as well. He says, or they say, one must not assume, I've seen you use the spindle sander as a thicknesser. Did it work well? I did indeed. Now, yes, it very, very much did. That was on the Nebula 2 series of videos, and that was used, it was a jig that I built to create the sides, or thickness down the sides of the guitar, and it did work very, very well. There were a few things with the jig itself that I will modify and change as I move on. There always are when you build these things the first time. I'd like to figure out some way of installing a T-track system or something like that. It was very precariously clamped onto the table of the Triton oscillating spindle sander that is one of my favorite tools of all time. But even so, even with those little inconsistencies and issues there, I absolutely fundamentally achieved exactly the result I wanted to, and it took a tenth of the time, including making the jig, than it would have if I had been planing them down from the 4mm, I think greater than 4mm thick stock that I had. And bear in mind, on top of that, that particular guitar was being made out of burl maple, hand planing thin burl maple in long strips. Oh, that would have, it would not have been good. It would not have been good at all. Alrighty, please don't forget that we have a Discord server. A lot of Crimson followers are on there, chatting guitars and guitar building throughout the week. And I wish I had more time to spend myself in there. Hell, I don't even have time to look at my own Instagram questions at this point, but we're getting there. Coincidentally, the first comment I see is from Lisa, who says, I'm pretty exhausted from doing some gardening. We all need some time in the greenery, don't we? I'm very lucky with the workshop that I have here, with the woods going there, and we've got loads of trees. It's, yeah, I'm very fortunate. Okay, now let me just check. Everything seems to be going well. We're live. We're good. How are you all? I've been talking non-stop now for 9 minutes, and I haven't actually really spoken to you. How's it? Ooh, I've got a cup of tea here. Okay. Robert R. Hey, Robert. Says, hey, Ben, have you ever thought about using a jeweler's ring clamp to hold small inlay pieces while working on them when filing? To a certain extent, yes. Jeweler's ring clamps are... Oh, they come in various different shapes or forms, sizes, and varieties. And they... So, for example, this one here... Where is camera number 4? Let's bring camera number 4 into view. Okay, what are you doing, camera number 4? Aha! Right, so this one here, this is one of my favorite, well, this type of tool is one of my favorites for this sort of work. I don't really have enough light on proceedings. Aha! Spread out. That's not a great... Ooh, sorry. Okay. I don't know what's happening today, but the lighting appears to be a bit crabby over in that corner. So there we go. Camera number 4 kind of sucks. I'm going to get 3 involved. So this type of jeweler's vice, often, I think they're probably more watchmakers' tools than jeweler's devices, but they are very, very, very good. Aha, there we go. For that sort of work. And they're also incredibly well made. Look at how the spring here is actually dovetailed into the body of the tool. It's more apparent here. This is a Buck, Tottenham Court Road. Incredible tool. So I use those. I do use those a lot. There are a variety of jewelers' ring clamps that aren't actually particularly useful just because they're so bulky. And those ones, let me see if I can find, yeah, I'm just trying to see if I've got anything. Nope, the drawers of doom have not got very much in them at the moment of that sort. Now, I do have, and it's not in my tools here, I have got some incredibly beautiful, minor vintage, but there are modern versions available. It's a tiny little clamp, a similar sort of size as this, but it does have a little knurl set screw to lock it down, which is a little bit more user-friendly than this sliding lock that uses friction to hold the clamp closed. Now those are sold for fly fishermen to help them tying their flies. And it's an incredibly cool little tool. It's very useful, and it's got a much finer jaw as well. So you can get in and do all the angles and things as well. Very delicate, which is perfect for doing inlay work. Now, yeah, I suppose the answer here is that there are a multitude of ways to do the same job, and as is evidenced by what I'm showing you today, I personally tend to go the most vintage and preferably the prettiest option possible. I like surrounding myself with gorgeous tools. Makes me think that I'm going to make gorgeous work, I suppose. But there we go. Okay, another quick super chat from D. Bailey, who says, why aren't there chemically blued hand planes? Okay, that is, do you know what? I'm going to have to take a photograph again of one of your comments, because that could be an interesting video. The thing is that hand planes are used, and they are used often, and they are used in, I was going to say the word compromising situations, but you lay them down on your workbench, you put them down flat, you put them, and it's a constant friction, and that friction eventually wears away the bluing. Now, I have seen chemically blued tools before, but it never lasts long. Form follows function, and that's one thing. Having an aesthetically gorgeous plane, it's much in the same way as my 90-hour build was physically beautiful to look at if you don't have, it's a trypophobia, when you've got a phobia of irregularly shaped holes. I think it's a gorgeous looking guitar. I sort of went off at about a quarter way through the build, but you know, but functionally, all the fripperies, all the prettiness makes actually in that case hinders the playing of the instrument as an instrument. Now, chemically bluing a plane, no, that's not going to hinder anything, but it's not going to stay pretty for long unless it is a plane or a tool, because you could do this with chisels or whatever, that isn't going to be used very much. That would be sad. That would be sad. I'm going to mute this while I down this now almost tepid tea. Well, that was an experience. Terry Love. Terry, how are you? Terry's coming with a super chat. Terry says, Ben, when are you going to put on an exhibition in the British Museum? Hand tools through the ages, Bronze Age until today. Never. I know people who have collections like that. I have got a Bronze Age dagger. I've got a really beautiful spear made in, I think it was said to be the 4th century AD. It's Damascus steel, basically, made out of meteorite. It's incredible. That came out of the Russell collection, actually, when he unfortunately passed. And it was, did he pass? Actually, I think it was sold before he died. He may well still be alive for all I know. Anyway, beautiful thing, and this past week I bought a collection of axes. I bought a collection of vintage and antique axes, 40 axes plus. A lot of them are beautiful side axes, goose wing axes and things like that, through vintagetoolshop.com, which is part of the Crimson family. And yeah, there were 3 axes that we were like, let's research those a little bit better when we get in the car and start driving home. And it turns out that we have bought 3 15th, 16th century executioner's axes. Actual 1 French and two British. These things are worth thousands of pounds, but have also killed potentially thousands of people. I've just had a message this evening from Ricky. He says, a lovely fact for a Sunday evening. Historians estimate that there were as many as 72,000 executions just during Henry VIII's 38-year reign. Not good. Anyhow, back to guitar building, not vintage tools. But Terry, I would love to do something like that. I've always wanted to have I have always liked the idea of having a tool museum of some sort myself, or at least a collection on display for people to look at. But to be honest, I really don't keep anywhere near the amount that I could. Yeah, we tend to sell most things. So yeah, vintagetoolshop.com. Check it out. Okay, so now let's see. Queries, questions, comments, criticisms. How are your GGBO builds going, all of you that are partaking in the fun and frolicking that is guitar building in front of a bunch of people? Okay, well, hold on. This is the problem. The chat just jumps about randomly every now and then for me, and I can't find things. Sweet Tea Guitar says, Ben, hey Sweet Tea, Todd, Ben, your obsession with old tools has rubbed off on me. I have that effect. I'm not sorry. I have been buying many vintage tools lately. It seems that past users' juju gets in there and passes on to the new owner. Oftentimes, and it's silly things. I was doing some DIY up at the house yesterday, and between the utter shite that hardware stores sell you and the former owners of this property were just beyond the pale. I was not having a good day, and I came down here and I had to grab a box of washers and a box of nuts that I've got. And this box of washers was put together and collected over decades by some old guy who unfortunately died, and I cleared his workshop 4 or 5 years ago now. And I've got 6 or 7 of his boxes of tools that he's collected to, and I'm now adding to. And at some point, this box of washers, it might not have the same washers in it, but my son will take, or one of the sons, or my daughter, somebody's going to take this on, have it in their workshop, and they're going to be using it and feeding it, and and I was just thinking, my gosh, this chap's probably been dead now for 5 or 10 years, but I'm still using his old box of washers when I'm in desperate, dire need of a random washer that just perfectly fits this M4 bolt, but is actually wide enough to cover the gaping hole left by the arsehole who used to own my property. Excuse my language. And he truly was an arsehole. I tell you, this guy had cameras all around the property spying on the neighbours. He had one on the passageway between the houses so you could see when they came and went. Anyway, let us go back. Now, Sporadic Amnesic, I love your name, has come in with a super chat as well. It says, Superman has the Fortress of Solitude, Batman has the Bat Cave, Ben has the Tool Cave. I like it very much. This is my safe place. This is my comfort zone. I'm standing behind my workbench. This is where I am at my most relaxed and my most comfortable all the time. I tell you, so this evening, my Orson, who is the middle child, was doing some homework, i.e. his homework was literally to make a cake and decorate it in such a way as to illustrate the water cycle. I mean, he got into it. But anyway, so the youngest child, who is nearly 8, was not allowed to be involved in this process. This is far too fun for children who are 8 years old. You just can't deal with the excitement. And he's just bouncing around saying, Daddy, I'm bored, Daddy, I'm bored, Daddy, I'm bored, for about 20 minutes. But he wouldn't give me anything that he wanted to do other than go and bug brother and mummy in the kitchen. And finally, he quietened down. I'm like, you all right? He says, yes, I'm a cocoon. And he'd folded himself onto the floor, covered himself in a blanket, and for a further 20 minutes was almost entirely quiet, utterly not bored, pretending he was a worm in a cocoon. And this is my cocoon. This workshop is me at my most serene. Thank you for sharing it with me. Okay, now, the big unit. Hey man, how you doing? Says my GGBO started yesterday. Unfortunately, learning a few lessons the hard way already. Those are the lessons. Those lessons are often more important than anything that I can show you. I did also miss a super chat here from D Bailey, another one. But here's hoping you don't make those mistakes again. I am guilty of repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. But I'm going to blame ADHD on that one. Blame that on ADHD. Anyway, all right, D. Bailey says, could a leveling beam flatten a plane sole? Yes. Yes, absolutely. A leveling beam is perfectly flat, if you get one from Crimson Guitars at least. I cannot guarantee other brands work. In fact, I started making guitar building tools because I couldn't find anything from the other leading brands that was actually good enough for what I wanted to do. So yes, however, it would take a long time. Now, the issue is it's narrow and you've got some problems. One, you would either have to hold the plane down and push the beam over the sole of the plane. And for a small plane, for a number 4, yes, absolutely, go for it. Have at it, sir. For anything more than a 5, so a 5.5, 6, etc., I would honestly suggest you find a piece of, a good piece of MDF, a good piece of laminated fiberboard actually would be perfect. And these things are generally, as long as you're careful and you set it up beforehand, if you clamp it down to a workbench, the workbench might not be flat. Check it, and you could get there. And that would get you 99% of the way. And then you could finish with the leveling beam. Doing the whole job with this wouldn't be fun. That being said, coarse grit to start. And The other thing is that you need to take this is a completely unrestored 130 odd year old Stanley I need to restore. Take a leaf out of the Japanese toolmaker's book, and that is that you don't actually need to have a perfectly flat sole. In fact, that's not necessarily the best way of working. They have got a section at the toe and a section around the blade. Those two things are perfectly flat, and they've actually removed a minuscule dip over here, and then they've got a section at the heel of the plane, and that there isn't necessarily perfectly flat, and that means you've got a lot less friction, and yes, it's touching in all of the places where it's absolutely necessary, and it's registering and giving you a thing. And we're talking microns here, and oftentimes it is actually just easy enough to. I worry about that bit of wood there. I need to change this whole thing. Oftentimes it is easy enough just to level the whole sole of the plane. But yeah, here we go. We've had a flurry of questions here. And yeah, Big Unit, I'm very sorry that you're having issues with your GGBO already. Try not to cough in your throats. Cough in your ears here. I am feeling a lot better than I did last week, but it is still delicate. Sweet tea guitars. Thank you for your super chats. Sweetie says, I found an Archimedes drill like yours. So this is the gorgeous little tool in question. I'm going to go and turn off some of these lights. Hold on. It seems okay when I'm looking at the when you're looking at me, but looking at the actual close-ups, we seem to have a weird thing going on. It's not ideal. There we go. That looks a lot better already. So there we go. Beautiful little antique Archimedes drill, and this is for particularly fine work. I love it. Okay, congratulations. So Sweetie Guitars came through and said, I found, whoa. Ooh, are we still going? Tell me we're still going. I'm going to read this question as if we are. I just had an issue saying that I was offline, but that appears to be okay. I found an Archimedes drill like yours, thanks to @RobertR. New GGBO video later this evening. I'm having more fun than a person should be allowed to have alone. Peace and love. Okay, thank you very much, Max. Appreciate that. So we are still live. I had a great big thing flash up on my screen say, whoa, you're offline. Do you want to carry on? Anyway, Trevor Ward has come through with a $10 super chat as well. Thank you very much, Trevor. And Trevor says, I made a Les Paul style guitar from a kit. It looks wonderful, but after assembly, I find the set neck is a bit too low at the headstock. What is a good method to free the neck without ruining the guitar? Okay, unfortunately, this is a common issue with many kits, with most kits, and but not Crimson kits. I will get in the advert. Get the advert in straight away. I'm hoping, but after assembly, I'm assuming that you've gone the whole hog and you've done the whole finishing process and everything. The best bet is to take all the hardware off, take the neck pickup out, and if you can carefully drill an access hole from the neck pocket into the bottom of the tenon into the bottom of from the neck pickup, into the neck pocket, and preferably into the bottom corner of it if you can get that, and put steam in from that side. Hopefully you won't damage the finish. Warm up the whole thing, do it in a warm room, use a heat gun. We're not talking about setting it on fire, we're talking about making the area of the instrument toasty warm. And I'm assuming you've used traditional white wood glue, so Alkaline Professional or Type-On, something like that. These things will, with judicious use of heat and steam and water, release after a little bit of effort. Be aware that if you're going to use a palette knife, if you're going to use palette knives to get in there, the palette knife may feel like it's doing its job, but it oftentimes, especially the thin ones, which is what you need, will cut into the grain of the wood, and actually you'll start cutting into the wood and removing sections of the body or sections of the neck that you don't want to. It's better to do it with the heat and build up slowly, in my opinion. Watch T. Woodford. Check out his channel for removing necks. I don't have... Yeah. And now he uses some professional tools to do the same sort of thing. He uses a heating element where you remove a fret, and this is generally acoustic guitars he works with. You remove a fret and then stick these heating elements down at the 12th fret, or the body joint, the 14th fret, depending on what guitar you're on, and that, without steam, warms up the whole thing, and then you allow pulls out. Yeah, there are ways, but check that out. In my opinion, warmth and steam from inside the pickup hole is probably your best bet. Anything else is dealing with it from the other side, where you're likely to damage your finish, which would suck. Casey McDermott, Theta Guitars, is coming with a super chat saying GGBO is going well, a lot of progress this week. Fretboard binding and radius done next to the inlays and frets. I'm really excited about this build. I am looking forward to catching up with it myself. I've spent a lot less time watching the builds than I had planned. I've watched a lot, I've seen a lot. Generally, on my wife's YouTube account, actually, we tend to have that one signed in on the upstairs television. What's the word? Decadent. Having an upstairs TV. Anyway, Volcan SNV is coming with a €10 super chat. Thanks very much, V. And says, hey Ben, when wet sanding polyurethane, I get spots I sand through and the stain comes off. When restaining that spot, it wouldn't accept the stain. How do you fix an issue like this? Cheers. V. Yeah. Okay, first of all, you have got to apply more polyurethane before you start rubbing back. If you're ever getting to a point where you're rubbing through the varnish or the lacquer, then you haven't put enough on to start with. Okay, so that's how to fix the issue moving forward. Short of a full sand back to raw wood, where you should be able to stain things, your only conceivable option is to try and apply stain within a polyurethane carrier. Now, this is not going to be perfect, unfortunately. Instead of staining the wood, you're then suspending the stain in a lacquer above the wood, and you will see that it will be different. It will also potentially be a slightly different color. It's the same issue you have when you use nail varnish to repair finish in a guitar. Even if it's a solid finish and you've matched the color exactly, there's always going to be differences there, and it's always going to be obvious that there has been a repair done. I would apply that if you're going to go that route. I wouldn't try brushes and things. I would use an airbrush if I had to. But to be honest, I would sand the entire guitar down and start again. In the end, I think that would be quicker and easier. If anybody else in the chat has an option for Vulkan, then yeah, please let us know. We would very much, well, hell, always be learning. Let me know. Wolford Guitars, who's been a member for 3 months, says a member of Cool Beans for 3 months, says, "Evening, Ben. I will start my second GGBO entry this week, in a week or two. Also, I bought an Edward Preston patent pending spoke shave with a curve sole for 32 quid on eBay. Love a good bargain. Those things are worth at least 50 if it's the one I'm thinking of. And to be frank, Preston tools are some of the best ever made. I wouldn't be surprised if they went out of business because what they were doing was making them too nice and spending too much time thinking about them. Do you want to hear something that's going to piss you off? Yes, that was a resounding yes, Ben. I would. Record Tools bought Preston when they shuttered, and they took all of their molds, and they made a lot of Record Power tools. So, you know, you've got the Record 311, which is a 3-in-1 plane, which is fantastic. It's a bullnose plane and a shoulder plane and a chisel plane all in one. You just take the nose off and put a longer nose on, or take the nose off entirely and just have a chisel plane. Fantastic tool. In fact, I can't believe I don't own one. Huh. My tool collecting is deficient. Anyway, they took what they needed. They changed them, used to have the Record branding on them, etc. And then they maliciously destroyed all of the Preston molds. Yeah, not good. Anyhow, alrighty. So, Terry has come back with leveling a plain soul. Leveling a plain soul, spelt as in a soul that leaves the body, etc. He says, sorry, soul, as in the fish. A piece of plate glass, leveling a plain soul, using a piece of plate glass with appropriate grits of sandpaper can be stuck at or works. That was a mutilation of a sentence, Terry. You need to have a cookie, and I need to rest after trying to read it. But I feel that I have a good relationship with Terry, and I can take the piss a little bit. That doesn't stop me feeling bad. Yes, a piece of plate glass, preferably 10 millimeters thick, although 8 millimeters should do, will be the closest thing to perfectly flat that you can buy, short of an engineer's lapping block. Yeah, it would be absolutely perfect, and you can use either 3M, who make just the best abrasives in the world, in my opinion. 3M do some beautiful lapping, I think they call it a lapping film. It's sold by Workshop Heaven and various other purveyors of fine tools as a scary sharp sharpening system. But it's the glue is almost non-existent, but it holds it in place perfectly. And it's if you're using masking tape and super glue, etc., there's a little bit of a give, and you tear through the papers. Now, an alternative is good quality standard sandpaper, manufacturer of your choice, but use a good quality mount adhesive. And these are semi-permanent, so that they're not permanent adhesives that you can spray on a nice thin film and hold your adhesive down. And that was the mistake that I made whenever I tried to do something like this. Holding the sandpaper down just never went very well. But yes, Terry, that is probably the least expensive and most precise way of leveling the sole of anything, really. Vulcan come back and says, hey Ben, cheers to your sister for adding Fight Club-esque stills in your videos from The Office. Cheers. I think that was actually Bear, and I still don't know why. Please let me know. So I haven't watched that video yet, but what was the context of adding a random actor from The Office into the video? I've seen a lot of comments from people saying, whoa, but I don't know why. D. Bailey, again, thank you very much, D. Bailey, says, is that a Lee Nielsen scrub plane in the bottom corner? You have got sharp eyes. Holy... I don't know what to say. I normally follow that by random swear words. Yes, it is indeed a Lee Nielsen 40.5 scrub plane, US made, cherry handles, etc. This has been used for a single project by by Mark Jennings, actually, who is a stalwart in the chat, but appears to be quiet at the moment after starting a fight with me the other day about stretching strings. Not that much of a fight, but we're still in disagreement. But anyway, he sent me this to see if I wanted to buy it, and frankly, I don't use scrub planes. I just don't. And I thought that at some point, what would be quite fun is if I sharpen this beastie up, convert a standing number 4 into a scrub plane by opening the mouth, and then testing the two against each other, and then I will just raffle both of them off, and one of you guys can well, I suppose we'll, hell, one of you guys will get both of them, and then we'll figure it out from there, and you guys can do it, because yeah, I don't need a scrub plane until I hold the raffle. And then maybe I'll keep the number 4. There we go. I'll make a scrub plane for myself, and then we'll raffle this one off. Because I'm sure the number 4 will be probably a better tool in the end. Good shout, though. And here, so that's a Kwangshan number 1, which is similar to the Lee Nielsen. And actually, I've got Luban. I've got the Lee Nielsen versions of both of these small planes, but I prefer the Kwangshan ones, for what it's worth. Certainly on the small one. The block plane, it's much of a muchness. Okay. Now, phew. All right, I've reached the point where I've gone through all the super chats. So far. So let's see if I can find anything else. Now, if you... Sporadic Amnesic says, ooh, now that spear sounds interesting. We'd love to see that. I am going to do, on the Crimson Guitars Extras channel, hell, maybe on the main channel. I don't know, the tool... I'm trying to... On the main channel, people really just want to watch me build guitars. They don't want any of the extra stuff. I think on the extras channel, I'm going to do short videos, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, just looking at each tool that I do. Hell, I might even start a channel just about tools. Yeah. You know those videos where somebody has a several £100,000 laser and they're lasering the rust off something? That's what I was doing the other day, testing one of these machines to see if it would be, you know, fun, I suppose. And yes, it is very, very fun. But the thought was potentially that we do a deal with the laser company, set up a channel, because those tool restoration videos are huge, laser videos are huge. Combine the two with the fact that I've got a never-ending supply of vintage tools that are rusty, and we could set up an entire channel just doing that. A video a day of a tool being de-rusted with a laser and put together, etc. So that's something that we're considering. But anyway, it's all in a holiday. Yeah, I need a holiday. It's cats walking on the roof. Now that was by dint of saying yes. I would love to do a series of YouTube shorts and Instagram shorts, etc. Just looking at my tool collection and saying, hey, check out this cool spear, check out this executioner's axe, etc. And we'll go from there. Beth McKellar in the house. Matt Roman. Ben, what is too thin for a guitar? I've got a lovely piece of wood which I flattened, but it's only 38 millimeters. I've built a perfectly reasonable electric guitar out of a 30 millimeter chunk of wood, and ended up being about 10 millimeters thick at the edges with a carve. The only limiting factor is the fixing for your bridge. How deep that goes. For example, if you've got a Tune-o-matic, it's got a chunky stud that goes in. You can cut those shorter if necessary, or use a different type of bridge if required. The depth of the pickups and how long the legs are of the pickups, I would say you can get shorter ones. You can, so that's something. Or you can just have piezo and have a 10 millimeter thick guitar. I generally think that a thinner guitar tends to be more resonant and more responsive. There's less inertia involved. Physics is on my side, I think. But yeah. Controls. That was it. Electronics. Generally, pots tend to be fairly chunky. So unless you want to go micro pots, and generally the small ones are not great quality, or super micro pots. There are ways around all of these things. You don't even need pots. Have a direct out. Have a guitar that goes straight out, and use a volume pedal. Why not? The only thing limiting you is your imagination, and go as thin as you want. I love thin guitars. Okay. Jules has come back in with another super chat. Thank you very much, Jules. And Jules says, is it very bad or only a little bad if the fret slots are a bit crooked? Like you, I first made the radius, then marked, then sawed. I've now bought a fret slotting jig. Okay, Jules, it is bad. The ones that are crooked, you need to preferably fill with a sliver of veneer if you've got such a thing laying about. Oftentimes woodworking shops will sell a presentation pack, a tester pack of multiple different types of veneers, just so you can see different colors and different types of woods, etc. You can buy those relatively inexpensively, and in there you'll find all sorts of stuff and have headstock veneers for the rest of your life. I honestly think I've still got the original pack that I had 20 years ago, sitting around at Crimson somewhere. Now, your fret is the absolute be-all, end-all in how in tune your string sounds. Now, there is a bit of a weird thing going on because guitars are not meant to be perfectly in tune. Shout at me in the chat and in the comments if you think that if you're a fan of that crooked fret system, the name of which I completely forget, even though I've actually used them before. Anyway, somebody will let me know. A perfectly in tune guitar sounds out of tune next to a standardly a bass that is tuned the way a bass normally is tuned, etc. Because as you play, there are inconsistencies in the way it's set up. We like those inconsistencies. We like when a singer is not perfectly auto-tuned most of the time. So I've talked myself in a circle. Yes, crooked frets are bad, okay? However, you might get away with it. But I would never buy a guitar with crooked frets. So yeah, fill, fix, make flat. That being said, okay, so Ken Parker, ultra famous Parker guitars, you know, makes incredible jazz guitars now, trained by DeKisto or D'Angelico, one of the does, and he did a horrifying fret level crown and polish, etc. The technique was just mind-blowingly imprecise. It did the job, but the end result will never be as low or as comfortable or as slick as most of you will achieve with proper tools and a little bit of time. That being said, he was looking at a master built, I think it was a Takisto jazz guitar, and if you look at it, and he commented on the fact, the fret positions are out. The positions are out, not just, hey, we've got a slightly wonky fret. Some of the frets are visibly off position where they're supposed to be, and generally up in the higher areas of the fret, of the neck and the dustier end of the fretboard. But yeah. Take this information and do with it what you will. Now, if your fret is only ever so slightly off kilter, and seeing that doesn't drive you absolutely insane as it would me, when it comes to crowning it, you could potentially actually fix it. So the point of the fret, which is where your intonation point is, runs down the center of the fret generally. And if you're thinking about it, and you know where it's supposed to be on this particular fret, you could actually adjust that point so it's not in the center, it's off to one side, and therefore you have a wonky fret but perfect intonation. Try it. Okay. Terry loves his Crimson Guitars Tools, a channel on restoring vintage tools. You could get some of your tool makers to do the work, leaving you free to build. We are hiring a full-time tool restorer for vintagetoolshop.com minimum, and I'm thinking about doing a setup where they've got 2 or 3 cameras and a workbench where this person will sit and work, stand and work. Most people don't sit at workbenches, and there will be a lot of tool restoration being done. We at the height of vintagetoolshop.com, we were listing between 60 and 80 new tools for sale every single working day. Now, I want to change that moving forward. I want to have a drop. I want to work through the week and then say Friday evening or maybe Sunday evening, maybe Sunday, I don't know, we'll figure it out. We'll say, okay, hey, yo, at this time, we're gonna, you know, 400 new tools are going to go live on the website. Free for all, go. And they'll be on the website for, say, a week before they hit our eBay account, and something like that. But the result will be a lot of tools being done. The Vintage Tool Shop has its own Instagram channel, and we'll be doing short videos on there. It's just a case of trying to prioritize what we do and where we do it. I will do some restoration videos because I absolutely love it. Mainly it'll be on my own tools, so stuff I want to keep. But yeah, we'll see. Some videos on the main channel where I'm doing it, and then onto the side channel. I don't know. D. Bailey, good question, says, have you built any furniture in your home? Not for a hell of a long time. First piece of furniture I ever built was a coffee table. I could probably sink a battleship with that coffee table. The legs were 4-inch squares. The top ended up being a framed section of marble that I found somewhere, but it was 3-inch thick marble. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why my wife put up with me. Crikey, she must have loved me. It was like a 2-man lift. It really was absolutely insane. In reality, I just we've got a kitchen going on at the moment, and I'm currently, do you want to see a mess? Yeah, have a look at this. So this is the workshop right now, and that there is a laminate top that I'm going to be putting the side. Oh, this camera is not square. There we go. I'm putting the side stuff on, and that's going to be a top. Now all of this mess is because through there is the extension, and it's all compressed. Oh, did you see the Crowe? Here we go. So my one and only first ever bit of taxidermy. I absolutely gorgeous. I don't normally hold with taxidermy, but I walked into an antique shop in Sherborne, and the guy had a Crowe there. He said, "Oh, not for sale." And I'm Ben Crowe. I need a Crowe in my life. Find me one. And I got a text message a few months later. Actually says, "Have Crowe. Call me." Yeah, there we go. Now, so yes, D. Bailey, I have the ability, I think, to build furniture. I have a severely limited amount of time. Anything that I do in the workshop generally needs to be on camera. It needs to be on camera. And there's a lot of stuff that just wouldn't suit. People want to watch me build guitars. As much as I would enjoy, I would really enjoy at this stage attacking a proper, proper old rocking chair or something like that. Retirement. By the time I retire, I'm going to have a hell of a workshop, I tell you. Okay, Spike's Frugal Fixer Guitars has come in with another super chat. Thanks very much, Spike. And says, Ben, I will be thermoforming guitar bodies out of ABS plastic on my stream on Thursday. One Tele plastic caster. One carved top like I built for GGBO last year. Yes, surely crazy. Not crazy at all. I've wanted to do thermoforming for a long time. The first base is done for $76. You're not selling it for $76. I'm assuming that's how much it cost you to make. Enlighten us. Before I even knew what thermoforming was, I thought that it would be cool to take one of those pieces of mirrored perspex and warm it up and then form it onto the front of a Les Paul carved or a PRS carved guitar and get something that looks like melted glass but mirrored, etc. It would be so cool. And then looking into it, there's a lot of plastics in the world now that are there to be thermoformed, and the system to build, the process to do that is relatively straightforward. We have had plastic guitars in the past made in similar fashions, and they've done relatively okay. Personally, I do not think there's a good enough reason for one or two. Fine. What Spike's doing there, absolutely yes. Hell, I am going to build a plastic guitar at some point. I know it. I guarantee it. It's going to happen. But I'm talking from the point of view of a guitar manufacturer. I would not want to build plastic guitars. I'm already pretty anti-resin, even though I have built guitars using the resin river and all that jazz. I just think that most plastics as they currently exist are not ideal. Now, I have said in the past, and will say again, a guitar is actually not something, it's not a single-use item, it's a multi-use item, and that does go a long way to assuage my guilt. And Spike, while I'm not going to be able to watch the stream, I am interested to see how that goes. And yeah, I hope a bunch of people watching this will come and join you. Speaking of which, there's 137 people currently watching and only 51 likes. My gosh. Hold on, pause that. That's working, we're good. Nope, hold on, I've lost this again. Cameron Gore says, can the new tool repairer do my standing number 7 on stream? I'm afraid not, because that was one of the tools that I spent quite a bit of time with hitting with a laser the other day. It was the rustiest tool that we have in the building. But I do have some footage of that, and I certainly have some footage of that, and there will be video. There will be at least some Instagram shorts or stories or something of that going on, and yeah, we'll sort that out. Now, the whole tool wasn't done. We were doing a bit of experimentation, but it's pretty close, and it removed a hell of a lot. It's really interesting. Mr. Waffle says, makes me wish I lived in Dorset. I love restoring tools. I mean, you could always move, you know. And I'm being half serious. Okay, Casey McDermott, Theatre Guitars, I knew somebody was going to say this, says there are some awesome uses of auto-tune out there by really good singers. Yes, there are. I believe in a life after love. I really do. It is exactly the same case that there are good uses for dynamite, and there are some pretty shit uses for dynamite. Okay, it is not. There is a huge grey period, but grey zone. Things that are perfectly in tune, things that are perfectly in time, tend to lack a certain something. And I would argue that some of the best uses of auto-tune that I have heard have not been perfectly in tune. It's not about how in tune, it's a use of it. Anyway, yes, I agree with you. Now, I've got that damn song stuck in my head, and so do you, but I am not. I am not. Sorry. I used to, when I was studying in South Africa in the late 90s, I can't believe how old I sound. I rented a room from this old guy who was probably about the age I am now, come to think of it, or close. And that, I believe in a life called love, after love or whatever. So there was probably a 7-track EP released, I suppose, with 7 different versions of that song, the disco one, etc. And he played that damn album on repeat for months and months and months. Yeah. That wasn't even the worst thing that happened in that house. Ha! Sweet Tea Guitars, hey, says, I found some killer Fiddleback Sapele fretboards. I ordered 2. You know what this means. I shall share one with you. I'm very much looking forward to that, Sweet Tea. I'm going to have to put a care package together going back the other way. I know we sent you some tools, but yeah, quid pro quo. Flamed Sapele, quilted Sapele. Sapele does some amazing things, and it is actually potentially one of my favorite woods when it's figured. The big unit comes in again. Says, Ben, I have been struggling with blade tracking when cutting out the body on a bandsaw. Any tips? Also, I may have to modify my body shape slightly now. That is the secret. I'm always angry. You will notice that I don't tend to use templates. I've got a bandsaw and I've got an oscillating spindle sander, and if the bandsaw wanders, or if I change my mind 20 times in between in the whole process of sorting out the body design, I fix it on the sander. And being 1 or 2 millimeters here nor there often doesn't make any difference. So seriously, do not beat yourself up over this. Now, on the bandsaw tracking, it is entirely, there are two things. One, the tension of the blade is something to bear in mind, but it is almost certainly going to be an issue with how the bearings are set up. So on the top and the bottom of the blade, you want to have the blade held either between the bearings, or it could be a friction fit, etc., that holds the blade on either side. You want the front of that section to be just behind the teeth of your bandsaw blade go like that. You want the front edge of whatever that is to be just behind where the teeth start to splay out. Okay, and then you need to have a bearing or a friction fitting behind the blade, stopping it from going much further backwards. Now, generally, you don't want these things actively touching the blade, depending on what system you've got, but very, very, very close to. The side ones may be touching, maybe not, maybe a bit of cigarette paper, close. And then the one at the back, just a little bit further back, like 0.5 millimeter or 1/4 millimeter. So when you put pressure on, it pushes it back, but you're not hitting the edges of your teeth on the things that are holding the blade in position. That needs to be set up top and bottom of the blade, above and below the table. At that point, if you are still getting drift and wobble, then it's the tension. And oftentimes the tension reader in the bandsaw will not be particularly accurate. Take what it tells you with a grain of salt, listen to the twang, and experiment on cuts and see if it's doing. Just adjust the tension, tighten it up, and it'll take a lot more tension than you think. And there's going to be a sweet spot. I can't say, hey, your sweet spot is going to be X, Y, or Z. There's going to be a sweet spot. Experiment, do some pre-cutting, and go from there. But I'm sorry, yeah, there are a few things more annoying. Now, a final tip is that on larger bandsaws, when I'm resawing a top, when I want to book match a top, I do not use a fence. I don't use a fence at all. I draw a line down the center of the top. I make sure that the edge that is on the table of the bandsaw is nice and square. I present the piece to the blade where I think it should go in the middle, and then pull the piece back and look and make sure that it is bang down the center and perfectly vertical, etc. At that point, I very carefully start pushing the piece of wood through. Don't force it. Another thing that could make the blade go off piece is if you're trying to go through, if you're trying to push it through too fast. Go gentle, let the blade do what it wants to do. 99% of the time, when you're resawing on a slightly smaller bandsaw, a fairly thick piece of wood, the wood is going to want to go through at a slight angle. And if you've got a fence there, what that does is it forces the blade into a place where it doesn't want to be. Whereas if you're just guiding it yourself, if you're watching where it's going, you put the wood at the angle that it wants to be at, and then gently go through, and you'll end up with something that's nice and square. I have ruined more tops than I care to think about by trying to follow a fence with a bandsaw that just will not be set up properly. And that is the final sad truth. There are some bandsaws that just will not do. They just won't be set up properly. And that is always a sad thing. Those bandsaws should be relegated to small cuts, and that's it. You need to have a relatively chunky machine in order to do resawing of tops, etc. That was a relatively short question, and I think I went off-piste. Okay, So, and there's even more things. There's all sorts of stuff that yeah, it's a dark art. I've got a book that's an inch thick that's all about bandsaws. So there we go. Okay, Jeremy Cole says the one thing you can say about punk is that the vocal performances are authentic, sometimes out of tune on purpose. Wow. So if you're out of tune on purpose, does that mean that you're in tune? With your, I mean, spiritually speaking? I don't know. All right. Guitar Addicts Workshop would totally watch a Crimson Vintage Tool channel. Thank you very much. I think it's going to have to happen. Knight's Dew says, could you please talk about penetrating oil and high build finishing oil, which I don't think is currently in stock. How to achieve satin for back and neck and a gloss finish for the top. Okay, so if you have no stain, then you can get a pretty glossy finish, and I'm not talking high gloss, I'm talking shiny, with guitar finishing oil. Either of them would do. Now, the high build oil is, it's higher build, it's got more solids, and unfortunately I'm really struggling to get one, to get it in stock at the moment because of, I'm still having some issues with supply of one of the ingredients in high build guitar finishing oil. Now, for 4 or 5 years, the penetrating guitar finishing oil, which was the original recipe, was all I used. So all of the demos that I've done on YouTube, etc., were using just the penetrating, and it just takes more coats, more applications to get the same result. Okay, so apply the back and the neck, fewer coats, and rub it in with the hard-wearing workshop tissue that we do, or something of that ilk. But you can stop after a certain time. If you want to get a relatively gloss finish on the top, preferably this works on natural woods, and if you do it with something that's got stain in it, you tend to go through the stain and you'll lose some of the color. But if you are applying the guitar finishing oil and rubbing it in using superfine wet and dry paper, and at this point I'm actually going to say 2,000 to 3,000 grit wet and dry paper, or even more, you are burnishing and polishing the lower layer and polishing the whole surface as you go. It works best on natural finishes. It works best on unstained wood, is what I'm trying to say. When you do it on a stained guitar, you will lift up some of the stain. Be warned. Okay. Volcan has come back in as well and said, hey Ben, have you ever tried making a pewter inlay or other molten metal? If so, how did you go about it? Very badly. Cheers, V. P.S. I ordered my first plane from Vintage Tool Shop. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate your support. Yeah. Yes, I have. It went badly. It was 10, 15 years ago now, probably. I thought it would be cool to, I had a guitar that had cracks and inclusions and knot holes and all sorts of stuff, or at least a piece of wood that I thought could be turned into a guitar. And I wanted molten metal poured into those things to see how it was going. And I had absolutely zero budget for doing anything. I also did everything really badly at that. I don't know. So I made myself a makeshift blow furnace forged thing, using a hoover that was, I don't know. There was, I think I had a suck blow hoover or Henry or something at that point, so I could blow lots of air in. It was fine, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go and buy essentially a disposable barbecue, and I'm going to turn this into a little furnace that I can melt some aluminium. It it was horrific. I melted the makeshift barbecue into a puddle. It was so thin before I even touched the sludgy aluminium. It was bad. So, yeah. I think the idea is still cool. It will burn the wood to a certain extent. And the problem I've got now that I'm thinking about it more clearly, and have done over the years, is that you'll pour the molten metal in. That will pretty much instantly cool down to the shape that it wants to be, but the wood itself will continue burning. So the end result will be the molten metal still won't actually fit perfectly. You'll have a gap around it. So I think, I have not tried it. Watch people, there are now a multitude of videos of people doing this sort of work. And I am not the person to talk to unless you're after a stupid story of me being an absolute fool. I mean, that's why we're all here, isn't it? Okay. Paul Needs says, just listen to the harmonies of any 60s band with screaming audiences and no foldback monitors, usually spot on and truly wonderful. They really did know how to, they knew their craft. Then again, I've also heard, well, I mean, we can argue about this all day, can't we? It's the slight imperfections in music that make it wonderful to listen to. I'm listening to a lot of Skunk Anansie at the moment. Her voice is amazing in an utterly strange sort of way, and it's not necessarily perfectly in tune all the time, but that's not why I'm listening to her. Same thing with Thin Lizzy, same thing with, you know, any number of singers. Anyway, let's not talk, we're talking about guitar building. Paul Cook says, Tanya got tired of waiting you to finish the one-day table build then. Got it in one. Krivara says, oof, you really need to do some cleanup. The sheer amount of, it's the compression by doing the extension. I don't know how this bit got messier, but it has. It's, we're nearly there. We're nearly there. Paul Need says, why are you showing my lounge off on a live stream? Sporadic amnesic, have Crowe, will travel. Rick's Crowe channel, guitar maker builds. Nice. I am going to be doing a series of guitars a series of builds where I do interesting vintage things, like not hurdy-gurdies, but you know, guitar builder makes a lute or whatever sort of things. Lisa says, I personally adore a cappella. Any of that? I absolutely agree. I used to sing in a magical group. It was really cool. Really cool. Anyway. Robert R. says, I don't remember the type of metal, but there is a metal that is similar to pewter that has a lower melting temperature. Not sure how well it would hold up. There are those liquid metal. No, liquid metal is what Amiga use in their things. Okay. Jewelers use it to make molds of leaves and things. I don't know. It's okay. There's a UK company. They do House of Resin. House of Resin sell it. I'm fairly sure House of Resin sell this stuff. Let's have a quick Google. Okay. Molding dyes in finishing chambers, knife making. Oh, maybe not. Their sister company. Somebody let me know what I'm talking about. Okay, Lisa. Okay, so Lisa says, hey Ben, already emailed Crimson, was so excited to get the new Stunning Stone shots. The box came with the shirts I ordered, but no shots. Both were on the customs label. Shirt is comfy though. Could you let me know if the box was opened? Potentially by customs, because very, very rarely we've lost liquids to customs for some reason. I'm wondering if maybe you're in California. But you have emailed Crimson. I'm going to take a photo of this so that I can chase up on it on Tuesday. I've got a live stream build tomorrow. I am very, very sorry that this has not gone well, and we will fix it. This last 2 or 3 years has been absolute hell. Terry Love, gun makers use a low melting point metal to take chamber casts. I can't remember what they call it. JS Trucking and Guitars is siding with Mark. Says that argument with Mark about string stretching was pointless. When have you ever seen an artist stretch a replaced string when it breaks on stage? I have seen artists play with it and then have to retune and have to retune and have to retune. If they actually replace a string on stage. Most of the time they'll just be handed a different guitar. Yeah, if you are playing on a string that has not been stretched, then you are playing very, very delicately. If you hit it hard, as I do, if you bend it in any way, shape or form, it will detune. And we're back to talking about things sounding better, slightly out of tune. A segue. Knight's Dew says, hey, have you showed us your personal guitar collection yet? I haven't. I don't have a major collection. I mean, hell, I just don't. I have a bunch of guitars that I've built myself over time. Other than that, I've just recently, literally in the last 3 or 4 months, started buying instruments that interest me. But even there, I'm probably not going to keep any of them. I've got a late 90s PRS Custom 24 that I'm going to take apart on camera and then probably raffle off. I've got a really interesting Taylor sort of electroacoustic thing. I've got I picked up a Les Paul, a 2016. I'm trying not to sneeze. Okay. Fooled you. You thought I was going to sneeze in your ears there. Yesterday I had a 2016, a really dented up, well played, but very nice 2016 Gibson Les Paul arrive that I'm going to see about relicking that one, or at least yeah, I'm going to take a razor blade to it and do some faux checking and have some. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a video. But what I'm doing now is I'm buying these instruments in order to experience other builders' instruments so that I can then build better guitars. I've never Bismuth Creative Composites, maybe. I think that as a guitar builder, I can't really justify having a huge collection of guitars, and I've only recently actually in my life had any disposable income to speak of. And hey, my kids are getting older, so that's probably going to start waning off as well. Up until the last 2 or 3 years, every single spare red cent I had has been ploughed back into the business. And I just haven't had the money to buy guitars nor the time to play them. So I don't have a fantastic collection, and that makes me sad. We'll see where we go from here, though, because for every 2 or 3 I buy, even if I'm buying them with the thought that I'm going to raffle them off or sell them or do a video about them, the end result will be that, yeah, there's going to be 1 or 2 that I want to keep forever, I'm sure. Terry Love says, chamber casting alloy, Cero safe. I open link in new tab. I will check that out later. That looks like some sort of, it's aluminium mixed with something, must be. Okay, anyway, that's really interesting. Thank you very much, Terry. I will check that stuff out. Whew. Oh, I've lost the things. Oh, the questions have gone. Tom Tackett says, sing for a spin. I can't even talk to you without coughing at the moment. I was a singer for a long time. I am well out of practice. Thank you very much. Well, Vax Headroom suggests gallium. Jeremy Cole says solder is lead and tin. Robert R says, we need some likes, people. Come on. 135 people watching, 80 likes. Ape Song says, try making a plaster cast of the volume where the metal will go. Pour, then use that to create a metal cast. When cooled, you then put that into the wood. That is actually a really cool thing. So you would use plaster, or actually, if you didn't want it to set permanently into the wood, if you've got a relatively clean and smooth inclusion into which you're trying to make a cast of, obviously you could use rubber or something, but let's be cooler than that. Sawdust mixed with hide glue. Yeah, sawdust mixed with hide glue, pack it in the thing, and then when it's almost cured, you can pull it out, and it should come away without actually adhering permanently to the thing. Run some tests. That is how they used to make those beautiful ornate castings that go around ceilings and architraves and all that sort of stuff. But the molds also had some sort of a finish on them, so probably oil or shellac or something to stop it as well. But look into that. That could be quite a cool thing to play with. It really could. JS Trucking says, I was not taking sides. I was talking from experience watching it happen in front of me during a show. Yes, I absolutely agree. But they did then keep the guitar for 1 or 2 songs or need to retune it constantly. It's just a nature of strings. It just is. I honestly can't even believe that there's even an argument here. If you guys play guitar, you know that what I'm saying is true. So there we go. Funky Buddha Guitar says, there's a YouTube video of BB King, or BB, which is obviously BB King, changing a string on stage, and was either the B or the E, so he bent them good, and I'm guaranteeing it went out of tune. It just is. There is no question. Now, Stevie Ray Vaughan as well, yes, absolutely. What do you think they were doing when they were bending them? They were stretching them. Jess Guitar says, have you been playing Jasmine's guitar? I'm not allowed anywhere near it. Sporadic Amnesic says he's going to bow out now. Been up since 3:15 this morning in his bed, and their bed is according to them. Have a good evening, all. Have a good evening. Mr. Waffle says, anecdotes is not the plural of data. Take two new strings, keep one as control, and stretch the other. If the stretched one is longer or the same, there is your answer. I absolutely agree. So now here's the answer. I did after the video, just out of interest, and this is starting to annoy me because it's just so patently obvious. But what Mark was actually saying wasn't that the string doesn't stretch. He's saying that there is a much greater, and I disagree with him still, but he says there's a much greater thing where your string is slightly rounded, where it goes over the nut, where it goes over the saddles. And as you play it, where it's slightly rounded, it beds in at a sharper angle, and that detunes the string more. He wasn't saying that a guitar string doesn't detune the first few times you use it or the first few hours you play it without stretching. He's saying that it detunes, but he was saying that the mechanism by which it detunes was not the mechanism that I'm describing. Now, the mechanism he describes is something that I hadn't ever considered and is a valid thing, I think. It's just not the main one, in my opinion. I think so. Funnily enough, there's now a three-way argument. Yeah, anyway. Lisa says, I thought you could get pre-stretched strings. I vaguely recall hearing that somewhere, but oh, I don't know. Failure says, completely forgot about the stream. An email asking me to rate my last order from Crimson reminded me. I'm still waiting for that order to be shipped. Oh, shit. I'm back in on Tuesday. I need to start throwing my weight around and figuring out what's up. We've had problem after problem after problem over the last couple of years, but what I can guarantee is that short of mass illness, we actually now do have the amount of staff and the quality of staff that we should have. So that'll be fun. JS is still on the string thing. He only uses one guitar every show, never swaps, has more than one, but only breaks one for each gig, and usually breaks the G string at least twice. Yes, and I guarantee that as he plays it, he has to retune it, because he is, by playing it, stretching it. We're talking about physics here. There is no argument. I'm going to stop answering questions about this at some point because it's starting to really annoy me. I will do, yeah. We'll do. I'm going to organize a tour of Roto Sound, and I am going to ask the manufacturers of guitar strings in the UK. Unequivocally, to answer this question. In the meantime, I am not going to talk about it anymore. As I've said a lot of names. Somebody said, anecdotes are not the same as measuring things. I think it was Lisa. Mark Guitar says, stretch is the wrong word. Bend to shape is what is happening. I think it's potentially both things. Anyway, come on then. Let's move on. Spike's Frugal Fixer Guitars, it's in the name. It says, Ben, on the bass I took a broken 5-string, bought the wood slab for $25, truss rod frets, nut and strings, total $75.96, total in the last short video. It is possible to build guitars on a budget, it really is. Jeff's Guitar says, I spent half my time tuning my 12-string, and the other half playing out of tune. Ooh. Goth Rider Creations, Bun. Am I crazy trying to make my own stiffening rods out of fiberglass? Not trying to outdo Spike on the cheap build stakes, but I don't want to spend out for carbon fiber. It depends on how... It depends on how much you value your time. Okay? Now, if making... first of all, first principles, carbon fiber versus fiberglass, they are two completely different things, and a fiberglass stiffening rod is not going to have the same effect as a carbon fiber stiffening rod. Okay. Now, spending out, I can sell you carbon fiber stiffening rods for under 20 quid, enough to build a guitar. Probably significantly under 20 quid. I don't know what necessarily we sell them for, but you know, I think I've seen them available on eBay for like 10 to 12 pounds. Not very expensive. I guarantee, unless you've got a lot of fiberglass and a lot of resin floating around, and this is just something that you have already, you're going to spend more than that in kitting yourself out to do that. So it is what it is. But it does come down to time. As well as the material cost, it's how much time you get to spend doing it. If it's something you enjoy doing, hells yeah, go for it, crack on. If it's just to save 10 quid and you generally earn, I don't know, £15 an hour or whatever it happens to be, you're probably better off. If it's not something you're going to enjoy, you're better off spending a little bit of money to get the carbon fiber, because in the end, carbon fiber is going to be stronger than fiberglass. It really is. Lisa says, do you have a web mistress yet? Are you after a job, Lisa? Seriously, if so, drop us a line. Now, the plan is, after many moons of considering it, we are splitting. I now have a plan on what we're doing website-wise. We're taking the Vintage Tool Shop off. We are splitting the custom guitar side off into a different website. We are creating a new website for the school. All of the things will be purchasable via the Crimson Guitars, the main Crimson Guitars website, which is the shop side of things. All of our issues with the website are down to the fact that we have got too many disparate things that need excuse me that need to be done in one place. The biggest and most important thing is it has to be an online store. The fundamental structure and look of an online store does not lend itself to being a nice gallery to show off custom guitars or guitars that students have made, or all of that sort of stuff. And trying to smush the 3, 4, 5, 15, 20 things that we want the website to do into one is where we've ended up with a smushy mess. So we want to have a beautiful gallery site where you can see beautiful shots of guitars and workshops and luthiers working and all of that. And then if you want to buy a guitar, it will say, here you go, click, click, click. Go through to the Crimson Guitars home site where you can place an order at this location. By the way, we also sell, you know, etc. So that's the plan. That is the plan. It's taken a surprising long time to figure this one out. The big unit, who is after all a university lecturer, I can't believe I'm still talking about this, says, I guarantee you metal expands and contracts. It's something electricians constantly have to deal with in long conduit runs, putting in expansion joints, etc., or suffer catastrophic damage. Now imagine taking something that is at rest and then putting it under, 6 strings, 90 pounds to 150 pounds of pressure, somewhere around there is I think what I've learned. So, 10 or 20 pounds of pull force per thing. It's gonna frickin' stretch. Crikey. You're wrong. You're right. Bulgarian Evolution says you can get carbon fiber rods and square tube at Walmart in the craft section. What the hell? Seriously. Carl Price. There is a name I have not seen before, or at least in memory. Hi, Carl. Carl says, Ben, if you want to cast an inlay, 3D resin printers have resin that burns out like casting wax. Cool. Ah! Okay. Alrighty. Oh, balsa wood. Yeah, of course. Goth Rider Creations is making a balsa wood guitar. Says, thanks, Bun. Just trying to find cheap ways of making sure my balsa wood guitar does not explode like a grenade when I string it up. Sheesh. Yes, Lisa, those issues have been there for years, and I've never been able to figure out how to fix it. We had a major web design by a professional company, and it was the third or fourth or maybe fifth time that a professional web design company has royally screwed me over. It's horrific. So yeah, anyway. Do. Okay. Anyway, second note, evening all. Had a good long weekend playing guitar. I'm envious. I've got a couple of new pedals I really want to play with, and I have just not had the time. Okay, I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm starting to lose my throat. And this cough is coming back. And we have been going for nearly 2 hours. Look at that. Perfect timing. 1 hour, 42 minutes, 42 seconds on the clock as we go. All right, if you've got another question, then hit me up in the super chats. I will answer any super chats that come through in the next couple of minutes. But other than that, I am going to call it a night because, do you know what? It's been a good stream. String stretching questions notwithstanding, and I'm very much looking forward to my bed. I am also going to be doing a live stream build tomorrow from 11 a.m. UK time. I'm going to be working on the baritone guitar that raised £15,000 for the British Red Cross Ukraine appeal, more than £15,000. And I need to finish that instrument because I need to finish that series. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have... My daughter is sending me messages, which is relatively rare, but I completely misread what she said and panicked just a little bit there. But instead of the word I thought it was, she said I arted. She's been doing some really cool drawings and stuff, and yeah, and it's not what you're thinking. But anyway, I was just about to mention her. The channel has been discordant and all over the place since January, since I moved the Vintage Tool Shop into Crimson. It broke everything about how my life was working up to that point, and everything about how Crimson was working, and just the whole grinding together has been... There have been growing pains. Well worth it, absolutely well worth it, and everything is now starting to run along smoothly and mesh, and it's great. But everything broke. The channel has been all over the show. I basically stopped the hand tool build. I started doing live stream builds, and I've had to do... It's just been very confusing. Last week I finished Jasmine's guitar. I'm incredibly happy with what I did on the applied logo. It looks like something on the front of a car, and it's an effect I've wanted to achieve for years, and I just hadn't realized that what it required was the carving, and I'm so happy with that. This week I am finishing tomorrow, that Ukraine baritone guitar, and Wednesday and Saturday it's going to be the final videos in that series. I have got the bass that I will be finishing the following week on the live stream, and then at some point that bass series is going to be edited and going live on the main channel. I'm going back to the hand tool build as my prime build from like soon, okay? A week on Saturday is going to be the hand tool build, and that's going to be all you will see pretty much, apart from the odd interstitial video until that is finished. I am going to be doing my GGBO build and various other things on the live streams on Mondays. I think the live streams are still going to be Mondays, even though I kind of want to change that date, but we're going to get there. Terry Love is coming with a £5 super chat, says, good night, Ben, good night, everybody. I'm off to fall asleep to an audiobook. Sounds delicious. What are you listening to? I've just finished listening to a Danny Trejo book, read by Danny Trejo, which was really interesting. And I'm now reading or listening to it's called It Takes Blood and Guts by Skin and Lucy O'Brien, which is really, really interesting as well. It is amazing how many people I respect and am fans of that have got books that they've written that are available on audio, read by the artists or the people involved, and they're just downloading their knowledge from decades and decades of working in interesting careers and into my brain. It's incredible. So there we go. Lisa Harshberger, let's just say the raffle already happened for the bass and I won it. Huh? Bubbly Juice says, Ben, the Jasmine logo looked sweet on that headstock. Thank you very much. I really was incredibly happy. Kenneth Stufus says, would love to hear your thoughts on the long-term plans for your channels. A few years, maybe 5 years into the future, where do you see it going? I would love to get to a point where other people could be focused more on the channel. We are now going to be filming students more often. The bass that Schoolie built while on a 3-month course was edited down into a one video, and it was a perfect example of how amazing our guitar building school is at Crimson. It's just an incredible experience, and that came across in the video. And the instrument itself was amazing, notwithstanding the fact that we didn't see an image of it glowing in the dark, which was a bit of a mistake, really. We should have popped into the toilets and turned the lights off. Nothing really is going to change apart from the fact that I'm going to be building more instruments. At some point, I'm going to have to face the fact that I'm going to have to slow down. And instead of putting out 3, 4, 5 videos a week across all of the platforms, it's going to be 1 or 2. So, you know, I might end up doing a video. You'll see a video a week, or maybe a live stream and a video, or whatever. I am really interested in diving down different paths and going and looking at different instruments. Let's build a lute, maybe. I'm also really interested in looking at vintage and antique instruments. I'm starting to get a lot more interested in repair work right now, and you will see more repairs on the channel. You will see me aging some guitars and seeing how that goes. And yeah, I think there's another 50 years worth of messing around just with guitars for me. There will be another side channel, I think, just for tools and tool restoration and looking at cool tools and things. And I think that could be huge, but you know, it's just fun. And yeah, well, I mean, we'll see where it goes. I'm not planning on going anywhere, but I do foresee the need to start slowing down at some point, which is sad. Big Eunice telling me to check out Scott Ian's books. Cool. I shall indeed. Volcan says, Danny Trejo, take a machete to build a guitar. Thanks and good night. Terry Love says, the Denisovans, the history of the extinct archaic humans who spread across Asia during the Paleolithic era. I'm afraid I fell asleep halfway through just the title of that book. My gosh. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect thing. The second note is saying, build a hurdy-gurdy. That will make you want to slow down. Ha ha! I met a gentleman today playing a hurdy-gurdy, filmed him playing it a little bit on the phone here. It'll be a story tomorrow, I suppose. And he had built a... wasn't a lute. He built a lute before, I think. He'd built a sort of a mandolin-sized, weird Tudor instrument kind of thing with lute style carved back and all, you know, the curves and the geometry that scares me. And he said he would never try to build a hurdy-gurdy. I'm not building a hurdy-gurdy. Although my sister bought me a hurdy-gurdy laser cut kit for my birthday, so we'll do that. Anyway, I'm out. I'm done. We're dusted. Thank you very much. This has been another good stream. From my point of view, I hope you've enjoyed it. I really have. And yeah, have a good week. If you're about, check me out tomorrow. I'm going to be building some guitars. If it goes swimmingly, we might even move on to the bass a little bit towards the end of the day. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm Ben Crowe. I'm out. Bye now.